You ever walked into a dealership and thought, fuck, I really don't want to be here? Yeah, all of us have had a very similar experience. Don't worry, service, you're not exempt from this same phenomenon. So the three of us would really just adore if you would sit down with us and listen to the bullshit we have to say about it, because honestly, not a lot of good. And we really love this industry, and we really hate that so many people have such terrible, terrible experiences in these places. So welcome to Curbrash. Of course, I'm Tony. I've got Aaron and Nick with me, and I once again appreciate you, singular viewer, for taking the hour or so out of your very busy day of eating Cheetos to enjoy our company. So, hi guys, say hi to viewer, and let's get right into it. How you doing?
Hello.
Hi, viewer.
I'm doing well.
We're doing.
I Oh, sorry, Aaron. I cut you off. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying
The
hi to
hell
the
was
viewer.
that?
I'm good.
All right. So yeah, we've got a collection of stories. You know, we're savvy individuals with interesting things to say. So to kick it off, we'd like to talk about sales, because I think we all agree car salesmen are the sleaziest people on the planet. And that's, I'm sorry, Nick. I know that probably hits home, as you are the
Hey,
son of a salesman, but
it is what it is, right?
it,
Stereotype exists for a reason.
well, they didn't get that stereotype for nothing. So honestly, you see a lot more really fucking cringe shit on like TikTok. Like we were passing around those guys selling the cheapest cars in all of Canada in Hamilton, $3,000 for something that's definitely been totaled out.
Best cars in the whole of Canada.
He never said best. He never ever said, and I don't believe.
He
Uh,
he sure did.
yeah. Well, all right. I think he thinks he said best. That's for sure, but it's definitely not the best. So we've had a variety of experiences, and I will say I've bought two cars at dealerships in my life. Actually, three. Sorry, three cars that I've personally negotiated at dealerships. As I mentioned in the first time around, I bought my FRS, and I was totally a child in that regard. Uh, I went into it totally blind. I wanted the car. I didn't care what it cost. I did not do what I think was right for me. And you should never do those things. But I've told that story. Um, when I bought my mom's Corolla Cross for her, which was the fastest negotiation I've ever had. Well, for good and bad, but I just had what an experience. Roll up, test drive the car. They're like, we're trying to first of all, I call and I'm like, I'd like to make an appointment to purchase a vehicle. I'd like to see the vehicle, test drive it. And the guy on the other end is clearly 21 years old. And he goes, "Oh, you trying to buy?" And I'm like,
What dealership is this? Is this like
"This is
a
VW.
Toyota or
No, this is VW. They had taken on a Corolla Cross on trade. So I won't name the specific VW because I don't want people to call there. But it's a VW dealer in the Toronto area, and the kid, he does now. We saw recently, in the middle of him not helping us out, we did see that he had started making really cringy TikToks. As a lot of car salespeople have started to do. So, he was like, "You trying to buy?" And I'm like, "Yeah." Like, what? No, I'm like, "What the fuck do you think?" I'm like, "Well, I need to drive it first." And he's like, "Well, are you trying to make a deal?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Because we have an event on. It's a sales event. We're trying to move cars." And I'm like, "Great, works for me. Like, let's do it. Let's set up an appointment." I show up. The young man, God rest his soul, smelled to high hell. Like, you know how most car dealers smell like a whole bottle of like Dracar Noir or something, as is the stereotype. He smelled like rancid BO, and it was a really unpleasant experience sitting across the table from him. Oh my God, it was bad. Um, Walk out to the car and immediately notice the whole like front of the fucking front right side of the bumper is just mangled, and it's not shown in the photos, like deep gouges. And
what city was this dealership in?
I can't fucking tell you because there's only one
Okay.
VW in that city. I will tell you
Are they more
later.
just based on the scent that you described this man? I can
You,
get a sense of where this was.
it's
Okay,
exactly where
continue.
you think it is. So
I'm just building a
I
mental picture of this
the
guy.
mental picture, young guy, definitely loves TikTok. He's got cool hair, tall gentleman. So, yeah,
This
it's
one for sure.
mangled. This bumper's fucking fucked, bro. And I'm like, "Hey, man, what the fuck?" Right? Because it's listed as like cleanest car you'll ever see, and it wasn't. So, you know, I'm a silly guy. I start Googling. I find out the Corolla Cross bumper comes in pieces. It's not actually one piece. Like it comes in sections. So I'm like, beautiful. I'll buy the one pre-painted section for $300, and I can. He doesn't know this because he works at a VW dealer. I can convince him I'm gonna, do the whole bumper myself, save some money. And I tried, and he was like all for. He's like, oh yeah, take it, yeah, definitely. We negotiated like $4,000 off the price, and then his manager came back and he was like, nope. And I'm like, damn it, we got the gatekeeper. So
$4,000 off of
four
what they
grand.
had it for.
It was listed
That's
at 32,
really good.
and we ended up getting it for 28.5. It was listed for 31.9. So they were very
Yeah, you guys
motivated.
did
Now
well.
that's not all in; it did plus taxes, but the point remains, like that's a pretty sizable discount. But there was a lot missing from the car. There was no fucking like jack in the car, which I'd like to have. Like it was missing like the fucking tire iron. It was missing so many things. And I'm like, hey man, you need to get all this shit. And they're like, yeah, man. It took 8 weeks and like 10 calls to get the stuff that was in the contract and promised. But they promised they're gonna help you. They're like, we were really customer focused here, bro. Absolutely, you're not. You're out of your goddamn mind. And I don't know who drove the car before that destroyed that bumper and just was like, you have it. I don't want to deal with it. But it was a bad buying experience. It was shit. And like the guy was like, when I initially was like, I'll just take it as is, he was so gung ho. And then his manager was like, you're stupid and you've never sold a car before. I think is the gist of what I got, was this guy had never made a sale. So, yeah, by the end of the thing, I'm like, yeah, we'll just write the check, man. Like it's so simple. I don't know what he was expecting, but yeah, pickup was shit.
I wonder if
Uh,
he still works there.
He does.
He does.
I'm certain he does. I mean, I checked. I saw him 3 months ago, like on social media doing something, or rather, my dad sent it because he's got. It's fun to get older when your dad's like, okay, like you take the reins this time, right? Because I feel like I unloaded on this kid, and I know I have a general idea of what they took it on trade for, so I'm like, it was a pretty good deal. But yeah, man, it's hard
And
to.
what year was this?
What year? What year did this occur? What year
No,
was
like
the
when
car?
when did you buy this car?
This was like June of
I was
2024.
gonna say if this is the Corolla Cross, it has to be pretty recent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
'Cause they just released that not too long ago.
Yeah, it's the car. The car was
Got a good deal.
literally 2 years old. So
Yeah,
like,
which, like, just as an aside, and we can get back to the stories after this, I've never really understood where the Corolla Cross sits in Toyota's lineup.
yeah,
It doesn't quite make sense to me, but
I'll be
we can
honest, I don't
table
know what
that
a
for another
Corolla
time.
Cross looks like.
it
It's
It is
it's
right
like
now.
a smaller. It's like a Rav4 put through a photocopier at like 80%.
pretty much.
Yeah.
That's a
Hmm.
really accurate description actually, because like
Why would
it's
you want one of these over a RAV4?
because
And
Rav4 is
they're
at the
similar
time
money.
expensive. Now they're similar money, but you can get a slightly better equipped Corolla Cross for slightly less. They're less stolen. RAV4s are super desirable if you care about that. I think it matters. Not sure about the engine, I'll be honest with you, because I don't know,
I think
I
man.
it's
realize I
different
have
engine
so
from
little knowledge of these normie
it's a different
cars.
engine from the Rav4.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it uses the Corolla engine, so it's like it's smaller than the Rav4 and it feels more anemic to drive.
It
Which
does.
is, it's one of those things where it's like that's why like I really don't know where it sits in the lineup or why they have it other than to potentially fill a market segment. I mean, I'm sure Toyota's accountants know better than I do,
I'll
but
tell you exactly where it sits and why it sits there. It's because it's the exact thing that happened to us. We started off being like, let's get another Camry, right? It's a great car, right? And then my mom was like, I want an SUV, because she's, in fairness, the only good reason to buy an SUV CUV is you're getting older and you need a higher seating position. That's the only thing that I will accept as like why you're going to be a pariah with like a skyscraper on the road. I don't, any other reason is out of there. You're not going to off road.
Scions for that reason.
Yeah, exactly, right? And those were basically hatchbacks. So like,
Yeah, like the XB and the XB, I think it was. Old people loved them because they sat high and were easy to get in and out of, even though they were marketed towards younger people.
yeah, I mean, like that's what the Corolla Cross is. It's, would you like to spend an extra 1,000 or 2 and get yourself a lifted hatchback? Because you could. And the Rav4 is like, there must be something to do with production too, because the Rav4 is like, they were ordered, like, like they're ordered like 2 years back ordered for a while there. Like, you could not get one to save your life. So I don't know if there was an element there, but then do you remember, Nick, because you were there when I ordered the BRZ, right? Yeah.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, when we went to order the BRZ, that I ended up canceling. It's probably a story. Actually, that's probably
Is
another
this
story
your
later.
second dealership story?
No, I'm not gonna say it. Just when we were there was a lady who was waiting for a Corolla Cross, and she's like, yeah, she came in here to buy something else because she hasn't got a Corolla Cross in a year. So didn't solve any supply chain issues either. I don't know what it's for. It's cheaper than a RAV4. It fits a budget. It came with like less than 30,000 kilometers on it. It was a crazy deal, but when we went back to pick up the car, he still fucking stank, and I don't get it. And this is meant to be mean and rude because you're a salesman. You should smell not like that. Because at first, when you have bad days, right? Like where you're like, fuck, I didn't put on deodorant. Like it happens, right? Yeah, but both times that I came in,
Yeah.
you still stank like that. That's crazy, right? So, and then getting the jack was a whole nightmare. Anyway, salesmen will tell you, the moral of the story is they'll tell you whatever the fuck you want to get you to sign a piece of paper. They will just lie to you. Don't believe that you got them by the balls because they said something. Trust me. Like if that's one lesson to take away from it. Always assume they're fucking you. They're screwing you. They're ruining your life. That's my story. That's my sales story. What a fucking gong show.
Hey, these dealerships, they always ask you for feedback. You should write that in the comments. Like, this guy needs to shower and use some deodorant.
Dude, I just feel like I'm happy to say it here because I feel like if he heard it, he'd know it was him. But I don't want to do that. I don't want. That's the weird feedback. Your salesman stinks. Like,
Yeah, it almost cost him a sale because he smelled like shit.
dude, my dad kept leaning.
I mean,
further,
like, if
further back.
you're in a public facing position, right? So like, not smelling like shit is almost one of the core requirements of.
Yeah.
I don't know though. If he was willing to take $4,000 off the listed price, I could deal with a bit of stank.
And,
So
yeah.
that's like your threshold is like, I'll deal with you smelling like shit as long as I can get a discount.
Discount, yeah, that's
Good
a
discount, not just a discount, but a good one.
good one. Exactly.
I think that's fair. I'm happy to put up with a lot of stuff for like a certain amount of money.
So I'll go in with my dealership story because you guys have mostly experiences with like name brand dealers, aside from your FRS, Tony, because I know you bought that from.
Oh, that was bought at.
No, I
Nissan.
bought that from a
Where'd you
Nissan.
buy that? You got that from Nissan.
Yeah, it was a trade-in.
Okay. I have a fun
Yeah.
one. So my first
Okay.
car was a 2005 E46 330xi.
Mm.
So 4-wheel drive in a manual transmission. Sorry, it wasn't a 330xi. It was a 325xi.
It's a small engine.
I went to this dealership. They were located on Dufferin and Steeles area. If you're familiar with that area, they have a ton of these sketchy used car dealerships on like this one side of the road, like along Dufferin.
Dufferin and Steel.
I don't
This
know.
is in what city?
I'm never really in that area, so.
Yeah,
What's
it's considered North York. Anyway,
North York. Oh, okay.
the only reason why I went there was because my uncle a week or two ago he bought a 330i there, and he said he got a great deal. So I went there as well, and then I was very particular what I wanted. I wanted a manual car, and I wanted an E46, and they just had this 325xi there for me to try. And I couldn't drive manual at the time, but I still tried anyway. My uncle drove it off the lot, and then I jumped in at the next plaza to like try to figure out how to drive stick there, and it was horrible. But when I did get the car moving, it felt good. I felt like I knew why people love BMWs because you just feel sort of connected with the road. And after that, we drove it back. We made the deal. Tried to talk the guy down. Wasn't able to. He was firm on his price. It was he wanted 7,500, and the car had I think it was like 90,000 kilometers. I don't really remember how much.
90?
90,000. Yeah, this
That's
was
not bad.
a long
That's a
time
good
ago.
deal in 2024.
Yeah, buy that in a
Yeah,
heartbeat.
today,
I
that's
might too.
very
Back
cheap,
then,
though.
it was probably a bit expensive.
Yeah. So I looked at the car, and it was, on the outward appearance, it had no rust. It was pretty good. You can tell that it was repainted at some point, but I didn't care. I really needed a car because I used to work for a place that gave me a company car and I was moving jobs and I no longer had that vehicle. So I needed some form of transportation. That's one rule that you should always remember. Never rush into buying a car. Don't set a time limit for yourself because that's when you make bad decisions.
Yep. Never be afraid to
Anyway,
walk from the table. Never.
Yep.
exactly. I was young. This was my first car. Doesn't matter. Um, wrote the guy a check, gave it to him, and then it was honestly I had to wait maybe like 2, 3 weeks before he called me back to say the car was ready. Um, I have no idea why it took so long. It should not take longer than a week, in my opinion. Maybe he was swapping parts off of it or something. I don't know. Anyway, got the car, and I kid you not, maybe within a month, the rear quarters started bubbling up, and then
No job.
by winter time, the
Bro.
rear quarter started like flaking off, and it was exposing this rust. The door that was repainted, um, like the paint was literally falling off parts of the car, and like the front grill fell off. It was just shit, man. Like
That's
I
really
feel like
bad.
they rolled back the odometer on this thing,
They had to.
and overall the driving experience was really good. I love the size of the E46, but this one, the outward appearance of the car really messed with my, I don't know, my mind. Like I just couldn't stand it. I had to get rid of the car. After a year, I sold a car for 4,500. Some guy from London drove all the way there, all the way to Toronto to pick it up, and that's the biggest loss I've ever had on a car.
Probably
Wow.
why you're so cautious buying cars now.
Yeah,
That car
it
ruined it for you.
just fucked me up. It
That's
really enforced
crazy.
the stereotype of what you think of a used car dealership salesman is like. Like,
Big
just
time.
yeah,
That
just gotta be careful with these guys.
it's like a cartoon. Like this where you're like, wow, what a great car, and it just starts falling apart as you drive off the lot.
Yeah, yeah, the guy hit a lot. I think it's funny is my uncle's car that he bought from the same dealer. His quarter started rusting too. Like it was a low kilometer car. It had 60,000. Actually, when he bought it, it was 60,000 kilometers. Even at that time, it was considered low kilometers. I think.
Probably Quebec cars.
Yeah, I don't
Oh
know.
my god, Quebec cars.
For my car, I was able to get the service history from BMW, and it was owned by somebody from like the beaches area. They took good care of the car. They changed a ton of shit, so that's why it never had any mechanical issues. But it probably was sideswiped when it was parked on the side of the road in the city, and they junked it, and then it just had a series of bad owners.
That's every single BMW that has ever existed. The first owner is a guy who takes it to and from work to his office, and then the every subsequent owner is more and more like leveraged out of their eyeballs and like not doing maintenance and like
It only
clapping it
gets
out.
worse until you get to the kebab shop owner. That's usually
Yeah.
number 4 or 5.
Yep. I was
100%.
I would say that the kid who bought my FRS, if he's out there, he must be a kebab shop owner for sure. Like there's no question about it. Like I every time I see a red one pass by, I'm just like, oh, if only you knew. Like maybe it's the one. I'm never gonna find it. Although if I ever see the a red FRS with like the painted headlights, like the inside of the headlights blacked out, I'm gonna know
Yep.
immediately. I'm gonna know immediately. They're not taking those headlights off. They're not gonna do. It's too much work. So unless he sticks, I don't know. A lot of kids stick VLANs on them, right? So I mean, it's not
But,
impossible.
but
But
your car went to auction, and another dealership picked it up, and they tried to sell it for
10 grand.
what you originally wanted it for, right? 10 grand.
They got 10. They probably got like 9. Uh, it sold at auction. My car sold at auction for, I think, either 6,800. After like my tax saving, it was like 7,200 or 7,300. So I'm like, for not having to deal with paperwork and hassle and whatever, maybe I could have gotten a couple grand more if I waited it out. But I'm like, cool, it's done. So yeah, I don't know. If they managed to get some money out of it, great for them. That kid, I'm sure, is gonna be happy with the spark plugs I didn't change before I sold it. So
All right, on to Nick now. Nick, I
yeah,
know you
Nick.
have extensive experience at the
Uh,
dealership.
I mean, I wouldn't say I won't say I really have any negative experiences firsthand. Like the only I bought a car from a dealership twice now. the Supra I bought from my dad, so that doesn't really count.
Did he screw you over?
Yeah.
Yeah, I had to wait 10 months for a parking sensor.
That's not his fault. It's service.
Yeah. We'll get to service, but I mean, I bought the BRZ from Subaru. It was just off a lease return, so like they leased it from 2013 to 2017 when I bought it. Um, that went more or less fine. I mean, like the sales, I bought it cash, so the salesperson and the finance people just they didn't really want to spend a whole lot of time on it because for anybody listening, I guess dealerships hate when you pay cash. They would much rather you finance or lease. So your best bet, if and when you're buying a car, is finance it and negotiate your buyout cost as low as you possibly can. And then once you've signed the paperwork and take delivery of the car, just go to the bank and pay off the loan.
Question on that.
It'll. Mm,
If you do that, how long do you have to wait so that the dealership gets their commission on the financing? Or
no, you can literally drive from the dealership to the bank and pay off the loan.
Yeah. In Ontario specifically, I believe, and this is going to vary globally, so do your due diligence, but all auto loans are open loans. You can pay them day one or like
Yep.
month, whatever it is. Yeah.
right, but does
legally.
the dealership get screwed over? Do they not get their commission if you do that?
Oh no, they still get their commission. The dealership's obligated to pay the commission because the salesperson sold the car.
Oh,
What the
Oh, yeah.
dealership loses is any extra profit they'd make from like financing or business office stuff
The interest.
that's what I'm talking
that they'd
about.
roll into
The
the loan.
kickback from the bank, like
Yeah.
would they not
Yeah,
have that? Get that if you just cancel it after like a week?
yeah, more or less they lose stuff on their end, but the salesman still gets their commission because they sold the car. Um, the dealership will not like you if you do that, but
Yeah. Don't go
I
back
mean,
there.
like,
So that
yeah, like
finance commission goes to the finance guy, not the salesperson. For
so
the
the
car, right?
finance office makes most of their commissions off of selling you like the fucking rust protection and shit like that. Like that's the finance office is it's their job to sell you the add-ons, the winter tire packages, paint and fabric protection, that stupid rust module that doesn't fucking do anything other than ruin your wiring. Um that's the finance office's job. And the finance office will always complain because they want the salespeople to like talk clients into buying that to make their job easier. But it's not. It's the salesperson's job to sell the car and the terms. So whatever lease, finance, cash, and it's the finance office's job to essentially package the deal with any add-ons they can swindle you into.
Yeah.
So who gets that loan kickback from the bank?
The dealership corporation essentially,
Yeah,
like
as a
Oh,
it
whole.
so
doesn't go to
fuck 'em.
one. Yeah, it goes to the dealer group, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't
But if
feel
the
bad
loans are closed early,
negotiating
yeah.
Yeah,
closing the loan.
now certain employees or like the finance manager or the sales manager might get kickbacks or bonuses from the dealership for hitting certain metrics, which is why when you go in they'll push specific things. But all the commissions for deals are just set by the dealership, and they're based off of like a percentage of the deal basically.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? Is I'm 100% certain that if you were to do that, like you bought a car tomorrow, you walked into the bank, said, "I'm here's whatever it is, $25,000, $30,000," that dealership will be notified pretty much like immediately that
Yeah, they'd
because
get notified instantly, and they won't they they won't give you a good deal moving forward if you go
yeah,
back to them to buy another car. But the good news about dealerships is they're fucking everywhere, so you don't have to go back to that dealership to buy
oh
another
yeah,
car. You can
And
go do it at
respectfully
at the
kick
next
rocks.
dealership.
oh yeah,
Especially if you're buying something like a Toyota or Honda, like you can't throw a stone without hitting a Toyota or Honda dealership, so you'll be fine.
yeah,
Um, but I mean, yeah. So the BRZ I bought in cash. The deal went fine. I took delivery, and I honestly never heard from the dealership again. Um, like
very
that was
cool.
it. Signed the paper. I left, and it was like nothing ever happened. Salesperson never contacted me to buy the car. They never contacted me for service. Um, I took it back at one point when it was still under the warranty period because the classic FRS taillight gasket issue, there was condensation in the taillight, and they were basically like, deal with it. It's a gasket issue. It's not under warranty. So I said, fuck it. I'll just get Valenti's.
Oh, is that what
And
spurred
did
that?
that.
Hmm.
And then like that was it. So I wouldn't say it was a positive experience at Subaru. It was just sort of it happened. It wasn't good or bad.
Yeah.
Um, when my girlfriend bought her STI, um, I mean, again, that went more or less fine. When that happened, it was during like peak COVID, so it was interesting. Like we never went to the dealership. The whole thing was done over email and the phone. Um, she got a decent deal on it because it was like early enough in COVID where they were like, "Shit, I don't know if we're gonna sell cars anymore." Um, so that worked out in our favor. But yeah, that one was kind of strange because it was again mostly email and phone. When we went to pick up the car, they like brought the paperwork out and left it on the seat, and then we signed it and had to leave the car, and then they came because nobody wanted to like touch or talk to each other. So it was honestly not that bad because it was like if I could buy a car online and it shipped it to my house, I never had to talk to anybody. That would be wonderful. And that was probably the
I can't
closest I
imagine
got to that.
like this whole COVID thing.
Um,
How you bring it back
yeah.
up
So
through all of
so
that
that
shit. Sorry.
no worries. Actually, like that was pretty good. She leased it, and for the lease period, we took it to um to Subaru for the maintenances. Being an STI, I did like half maintenances in between because Subaru wants you to go in every 10K. Anybody that owns an EJ will know that's not going to fly. So every 5K, I would do an oil change and like a mini maintenance on it in between taking it to the dealer. But all the services at the dealer were fine. Other than brakes, when it was time to change her brakes, they were like, "Yeah, we can turn the rotors and get you new pads, and that'll be $1,500, or you can just order all new parts and we can change them for $2,500." And I was like, no, that's okay. I'll deal with it because for anybody listening, like, yeah, the STI, hers specifically being a 2020, because all the 2018s and newer have 6 piston Brembos in the front and just the regular STI ones in the rear. Um, Anytime the dealership service department tries to sell you like brakes or something, they're very likely grossly upcharging it. For reference, I was able to get brand new rotors and pads for that car for I think $1,200, 12 or 1,300, which is pretty good considering the size of the rotors and pads, especially in the front, being Brembos. Um, and then I just changed them myself. Doing monoblock caliper brake jobs it's easier than doing floating caliper. Everything just slides out and back in. It's piss easy. Um, so yeah, I mean, I guess good segue into talking about service. But
Yeah.
anytime service is trying to sell you something like brakes or I don't know easier jobs like that, just I'm not going to say they're trying to screw you over, but
You gotta
dealerships
make
usually
money,
just
right?
yeah, dealerships usually just charge a lot of money because they're name brand, I guess.
Well, they speak from a
But
point of
just
authority. That's what they believe, at least.
yeah, like everybody's looking for somebody to tell them what's right and what's wrong because most people don't really know things. But I'd say it's worth doing your homework when you get quotes like that. Don't just blindly accept it unless you have the money and it doesn't matter. In which case, all the power to you. You're doing better than I am.
I can't even
Um,
guarantee they will do like this is the thing. We can't even guarantee that they'll do a good job. Like it was we've all experienced, and we'll talk about
yeah,
there's not even that guarantee, right? Like they what is that? That's I forget who said it. I just remember hearing one time way back on the early car internet, like, yeah, he's a Ferrari tech, but the guy who was pushing the floor yesterday is like a level 1 tech today. Like it doesn't mean anything, right? Like you could be the new guy.
yeah, exactly. Like that's the thing. Like you take your car to an oil change at a dealership. None of the technicians are doing your oil change. The lube technicians are doing the oil change, which they're basically glorified janitors of the shop.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I realized when I
Like
whenever I brought my
yeah,
car
that's the
in.
position you start in, but the lube techs, unless they're doing something like a Corolla, in which case they do like 30 of them a day. I wouldn't take anything nice or that you care about to have a lube tech do an oil change on. Like I would much rather do my own oil changes, for example, on my Supra myself than let the dealership lube tech touch it. Or like
I
when I
don't
do
blame
have to
you.
take it in for service, I specify that the Supra technician is the one that does all the work, including the oil changes. And like, yeah, maybe that's a bit
You can ask for that. The
Polish, I
Supra
guess. But
technician. Is there like a
well,
specific?
yeah, there's for the Supras, that there's basically because the Supra's a BMW, the techs have to be trained on it. So only techs that have done that training can work on the car. So
Mhm.
at the dealership I go to, for example, there's one super technician. So there's only one person there that can work on them. And when I book my services, it's essentially just being booked with that person. Usually it's similar for like hybrids, like every shop, because Toyota has like hybrids of all their models now actually, but like you have to be hybrid certified to work on those. So
I should
some of
try
the
that.
lower level technicians may not be hybrid certified.
You should try that. You should try
Bring it to the
specifying.
Honda. Be like, who is the NSX specialist? I just want that guy
See,
to work
now
on it. That's it.
that's a little interesting because like a lot of mainstream brands don't have specialists for legacy models. Like most technicians at a dealership today, if you brought an NSX there, they're not gonna have any idea what to do with it unless like the shop foreman or something has been there since the NSX was out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Same for
even
like the
new ones, they probably
S2000.
don't even have any support
Well,
on it.
maybe at the Acura dealer they would, yeah, because it's an Acura here, right?
Yeah, like for example, uh, way back, I think like the first summer I drove the MR2, I just took it to the dealership that I was working at the time, which was a Toyota dealership, to get looked over and just a quick oil change because I just didn't really have the time to do it myself for like a month at that point. And like I remember I dropped it off there and I just went to work because I was working, and I had like full uninhibited access to the shop wherever I needed to go to do what I needed to. And I remember I was walking through the shop and I was just like watching the lube tech just sort of looking under the, the front trunk, the frunk, I guess, just confused because the engine wasn't there. And I was like, I walked up to him and because I worked there, I was like, "What the fuck are you doing? Like, what's
Kidding.
wrong?" He's like, "Well, where do you change the oil?" And I was like, "Just, brother, it's like it's in the back. Did you not look?"
Like, where's the engine,
And
bro?
yeah, it was basically it's like, "Where's the engine?" And I was like, at that point, I was like, "Fuck, can one of the other techs work on this?" Like, nothing against you at all personally, but you clearly don't know what you're doing, and I don't really want you working on this.
I wouldn't trust like that. I'll tell you straight up, I would not trust like that. That would
Yeah,
be.
because like in oil changes, it's like it's one of those things where like it's easy to do, but the ramifications of doing it wrong are could potentially be like complete engine failure. Like if you don't put oil in or don't starve your engine of oil, like that's it. Your fucking bearings are donezo. Which
Mm.
is actually funny because the service department at that same dealership, they had like a parts truck. They just had like a base model Tundra with a long bed. Um, and they obviously do all their own service. So they were doing a service on it. The tech drained the oil in it, went for lunch, came back, forgot that he drained the oil,
Oh no.
took it off the lift, and just started it and took it for a drive.
Oh
And
no.
they
Why
ended
would
up.
you take the oil out and just leave?
I
It's
don't
like
fucking
that should
know.
Never
be.
do that shit, man.
But yeah, like they toasted that engine. And then the best part is, since it was the dealership and the dealership's truck, they just put it through warranty. They said the engine blew up, so they got a
Dude,
free long block from.
Wow.
And then they paid the tech because it was warranty job to replace the engine.
It's interesting that you say you don't trust the shop because it's usually someone junior that's working on the car, and that's exactly why I no longer even bring my car to any like indie shops because I've seen who works on it. The guy is, he's either like an apprentice or somebody that's like fairly new, right? Like
yeah.
they don't
Yeah,
know
like
shit. I don't know
like
shit, so why don't
ever
I get
since I
that knowledge and try to work on my own car and
yeah, like
eventually
I will
be
try and do everything I can on my own unless I don't
yeah.
have either like I don't have the time or I won't have access to for some jobs if I won't have access to the lift for like a month or 2 months.
Yeah,
Especially for
that
some
makes
stuff
sense.
with the MR2, like you just can't do it on the ground. Um, but it's like ever since I work there, like I like vet and try to like meticulously as possible pick the shops that I'll be taking my cars to. because I've just seen so much shit working at dealerships of just antics and service and people not knowing what they're doing.
Yeah.
And
This
for
isn't just
anybody
in
that
this.
might own,
Yeah.
oh yeah, sorry, I was gonna say for anybody that might own like a classic car, like an NSX, an MR2, an old Supra, you know, like a 300, whatever it is, unless it's like a classic Porsche. Like I wouldn't have an issue taking a 993 or a 964 to a Porsche dealership because usually they have a technician there that will know how to work on it. But don't take your classic non-European or non-exotic to a dealership. You're very much better off just finding a good indie shop and doing your homework to pick the right one.
And there are bad ones. I think is the point. This is not just an assassination of dealership service departments. It's
Yeah,
pretty much anybody who works on cars because it's one of the easiest industries to walk off the street and they go, "Oh, you want to be a tech? Sure. Can you swear?" That's about it. Like that's the job qualification. So,
you drink on the job.
do you drink on the job? Do you walk out and walk
Yeah.
back in stinking of weed? I
Man,
think
the
I.
amount of people I've seen doing like lines off their desk or just like
Oh my god.
pulling a bottle of vodka out of their drawer and just taking a shot in the middle of the day. Just amazing.
I have one more sales story that's very short, but a friend of mine, and I'm not going to name the auto group, but they're very close to me, and you guys know where I live. Uh, Started working at it. It's a GM set of dealers. They're somewhere in the Toronto area, but it was his first time selling cars, and they do the thing if you get a sale that they cut your tie is the thing, your first sale. It's like a little fun thing they do, but first day, the managers invite him back to the office, and all the finance manager are ripping fucking lines of coke off the manager's desk, like, and he's like, and he likes to party, he likes to have fun, and he was just like, oh fuck, I gotta leave. Like it was way too much, and I couldn't imagine. I imagine most dealerships are probably like that, especially like American and European, I believe. Japanese dealerships, I could see being a little bit less, but they're
Oh
all
no.
fucking dealers at the end of the day,
Oh no.
so
In fact, I don't know. It's like I
it's
guess the
worse.
lower down the totem pole you get, the more it's like that. Like you're never really gonna see that at like a higher end. Probably not even at maybe at a BMW dealership, but
They got a lot to
you know you,
celebrate. That's why, They
you're
sold
probably
that
not gonna see
Chrysler.
that at like
Yeah.
Porsche or Lamborghini or like Maserati or something. But like if you go into like a Chevy or a Dodge or Chrysler or a Hyundai dealership, oh fuck yeah.
Definitely Hyundai. No doubt
All
Hyundai.
right. I think that's it for the dealer stories, right?
Yeah, I
That's
think
the next
basically.
thing. Let's move on to
Yeah, I didn't really have anything other
importable
than that.
hotness.
Yeah.
Now that we're in 2025, what's 15 years old that we can start importing? What do you
2010s.
guys think?
Yes. So I guess for anybody listening in Canada, we have a 15-year import rule, not a 25. So usually everything that anybody in the States ends up with, we get first and for a lot cheaper. Um, just for an example, people used to use like R32 GTRs here as just beaters. You could get them all day long for like 7 grand Canadian. Um,
Yeah.
and just stuff like that. Old Evos and just they weren't really seen as a commodity until more recently, and a lot of people for a while would just beat them because they were cheap. Um, so I mean, I'm pretty sure the Japanese or like the JDM Halo car wave is done. Like, there's probably not too much more that's a desirable item coming out of there for the foreseeable future. I mean, like GTRs are technically legal to import now, but they're never going to be $7,000 cheap.
Yeah. No,
Doesn't matter where they're coming from.
they're really
And
pricey. Like I think Japan's
yeah,
over. Like it really is.
yeah. Like
Like
Well
even
priced
all
out.
like the popular like
yeah.
sedans and stuff like Aristos, and it's over for that market. There might be like I'm sure somebody down the line will import a GR Yaris or like a 14R60 or something, but
I
it's
wonder
What opportunities are there? Like what else should people be
I'll
thinking
tell
of
you
now that the JDM when things been done and killed?
I'll tell you what I've been doing, and it's based on a conversation that me and Nick had a while ago, and we had it again recently. But I just out of convenience, if you own a Samsung device, they have that like free TV stuff, and I didn't even bother hooking up a cable box in my room. I use my TV to fall asleep, and I fall asleep to like 2000s era Top Gear basically every night. So I'm watching reviews of cars from like the early 2000s into like the early 2010s. And a lot of these cars we don't get, and a lot of them there are some episodes. There was the one in, I forget, was it Venice, one of some Italian city, right? Where they drove it was a Renault Clio Cup car. That's like a 200 horsepower, like comically small hatch. There was
That's
the
mid-engine, right?
is it? No, I
The
think it's
Renault Clio?
I think
No,
it's front
I thought
engine,
the
front
engine
wheel
was mid.
drive.
No, so Renault Clio did do a V6 version a long time ago, like early to mid 2000s. That one was mid-engine, but normally the Clio is like a front engine, front wheel drive economy car, and then there's usually like a hot hatch trim.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So it brings up an interesting thing where like now specifically for Canadians, if you're seeing like sort of these cars that like on classic Top Gear where you're like I never gonna have an opportunity to own that. Oh, this car is really fantastic, but never came here. I think we're gonna see a lot more cars, as me and Nick generally agree on this, coming out of Europe in the next decade. Like cars that we never had opportunities to own. We were just talking about the fucking Scirocco. I I want one because it's all the fun of a Golf R, smaller and a sports car formula, right? So, and they're we looked at one, a right hand drive one. We'll look at the left hand drive ones probably at some point, but like you can get them as cheap as like sub 15K Canadian. Like it's not going to be like you have to like get it over here and import it. 11% I think at the port is the tax, but that's a deal for a desirable, like it will become more desirable, like Golf
Yeah.
R
I,
engined all-wheel drive.
well, I mean, underneath it's essentially a Golf R of that generation, just in a different body, a coupe
Yeah,
body that's a little bit
What
sleeker.
is the appeal of the Scirocco?
it's just
As a
sexy.
non-VW fan, like, is it just the look?
So the Golf R,
Yeah,
yeah, it's
it
sexy.
just looks more exotic.
It's like a coupe,
Yeah,
sort of, right?
Yeah, it's
it
it's like I don't know if you think of like the Clown Shoe Z3M. I'm not gonna say it's exactly like that, but it's that sort of idea. It's like a sleek sort of two-door coupe hatchback
Okay.
type thing, and
I'm
it
pulling
just
it up right now. Yeah, yeah, this looks
I don't know, like
good.
same powertrain essentially as the I think the Mark Six
I
and
think it's the
early
six.
Mark
Yeah,
Seven Golf Rs.
It has the
I
same
forget what year
seats
the
as the car.
Scirocco ended, but it's basically a Golf R that looks better, more exotic.
yeah. It's and there's not they didn't come here, right? So like if you
Mm-mm.
go to a German like meet for like and you have a Scirocco, like it'll get some nice attention, like, and I think they just look great, and I think I'm shocked. The first one came out of that generation. It's like 2008, 9. Like that car is 50, 17, 16 years old now. Like 17 years old if you get to 2008. Like that aged really well. Like I'm not gonna go out. I'm not gonna jump off the cliff and say, hey, it's as attractive as the S2000 is considering its age. But I think it's like at least second place for
It
something that's
still
aged
looks modern.
amazingly.
You know what?
Like it,
Yeah,
The non-R one looks funny, but I dig it.
yeah,
but
like
It's like
if
really quirky looking.
you
yeah, like it's older at this point, but like I don't know, Volkswagen could release it today, and I'd be like,
Look
oh
at
yeah, that
this.
looks like a Volkswagen.
yeah, it looks as modern as my Golf R. Like a
Yeah,
2019,
yeah.
2021 was the end of that styling era. Yeah, it does look a little like
So
a
this is
commuter.
your pick. This is your Euro pick for 15
Well,
years old.
me personally, I mean, it's a little bit stealing Nick's, I will admit, but I think that one's a standard one. That's not a that's not an R.
I
It's
drive this.
just
That was cool. It's like a smushed
yeah.
like
It just looks like a like it's like a nice looking. I don't know. It's just like it. I think it looks better than most of what we get here in that
I'll send
class.
I'll send you the R one because I think that looks ever so slightly better. But I wouldn't be mad
yeah,
if I
I
dailied
saw the
that.
R one. Yeah, it looks
Yeah,
good.
or like we were just talking about it. I think last night because we sort of went down the rabbit hole of what do they have in Europe, but like the old RS3 from the
Yeah,
same generation as that Scirocco. Like it still has the 5 cylinder that they use today. It's still all wheel drive, and it's a hatch.
Yeah.
Oh
I
yeah,
think
I
that's
forgot
definitely your
about the
pick.
RS3. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, I'm not gonna. They're not cheap,
No,
but like
they're
they're not expensive.
I think they work out to something around 25,000 Canadian. So if you could get a hatch RS3, Aaron, it's 2012 is the first year or 2013, no, one or the other.
I think they came out in like 2011 as 2012 model
Right.
years.
If you could get a car that so an RS3 hatch, about 100,000 kilometers on it, you can even get one left-hand drive. $25,000. How are you feeling about that? Because that's the
And
price that we sort of
and
saw.
and it is a 5-cylinder like all-wheel drive with a DSG RS3.
It is half a
Like
Lamborghini
same,
engine.
yeah. It's like it's one of the first iterations of the current 5-cylinder that we have in the RS3 now.
You make that
And it
deal?
came in manual too. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
I
could
wonder
be
if the
the one.
manuals are because here generally like we looked at with like the R's and the GTIs, the manuals are actually cheaper, um, and the DSGs are obviously more expensive. They're a more expensive option and more desirable for like drag racing children. But like I don't wonder if that's different in Europe. It's not something I think we looked into because they drive a lot more manual than we do.
Yeah, I'm not sure on the RS3 specifically. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if it came like DSG only, even out there.
Really?
No,
But I do
I
remember that the
googled it.
TTRS of that generation had a manual option, so it's possible that the RS3 does as well. If it does, then like that'd be the one I go for.
Yeah, they
Aaron, you
definitely
listen.
have it in manual.
Yeah.
This the one that was on what's that car show? You have the sticker on your FRS?
Oh, Mighty Car Mods.
Any
Yeah.
car mounts?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was this the same year that they had?
I don't
Um.
think they had an RS3.
No, they did do an RS3 build. Yeah, it was a black
Did
one.
they?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, actually, I
I think
think
it
they
was
did two
white.
RS3 builds. One was a borrowed RS3. That was the second build they did, and then there was one where Moog did own it for a little
let
while and
me
then was
find
sold.
it. No, they did the current, like the most recent generation RS3 hatch.
Okay.
Um, yeah. So, I, right, it's either the most current generation or like the previous one, like late 2010s.
Yeah, so we're talking about the first generation cars, basically, that were 2011 through 2014, 2013?
I think it was like 2011 through, I want to say 15 or 16.
Right. So you make that
And
deal, Aaron?
I think I'd buy it.
Yeah?
And if the manual transmission, why not?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and like being a VW drivetrain underneath, like parts availability probably wouldn't be that bad. Like I'm sure it'll have some parts that are unique to it, but I'm sure it shares a lot with probably the Golf R.
I think with used cars and how it retains its value is how serviceable it is and how reliable it is.
Yeah.
So like something like this, you can get the parts here, people know what it is. You can definitely find an indie that can specialize in it. I think it'll do well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
A Renault Clio, I don't know if there are a lot of
No, there's
fans or
zero.
like
yeah, I mean, like the serviceability thing, it's I don't know. I feel like there's levels to it, right? Because like you get a cheap car that's not very serviceable here and unreliable, then yeah, it's just going to be a cheap piece of shit. But like Countachs aren't reliable, but they had a very big impact in their time,
Yeah.
and as such, people will
yeah,
pay to
it's just
keep
so
them
you
going.
got to find that
So
balance
like
too
there's
for
there's
something like
levels to it,
this.
right? And then I'm not saying an RS3 is going to be a Countach at any point, but
No, you put it on record actually, so I think that's exactly what you said. My RS3 is a Countach. Put that's
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, it's like 40% of a Countach
Yeah.
ish. Yeah,
Uh,
about
No, I
that.
think Aaron's right though. I think because that's why those like big German boat cars like tank into the floor. They cost so much money to maintain, and then people who
Yeah,
don't know any better buy them, who don't do their
yeah, like
research.
regular S class or 7 series, worthless.
Yeah,
But like an AMG S class,
Look at G
it's
wagons.
got some spice to
They
it, right?
G
even
wagons.
old ones, they hold their value. Like
Because it's the
Even
same
the
car since
2010s and all
1974.
that. Yeah, they
yeah,
still
you
go
know
for
what?
40 grand, and you can drive
I
them.
will say I love the G55 AMG, the one that used like the supercharged V8 from like the mid 2000s.
Really?
I love it. I would take that over any modern G wagon.
When did you become a Kardashian?
I would
I
buy one
just
too.
I'm not
Like,
gonna say like I love it. It's just like of the G wagons, that is by far the G55 is my favorite
All
G
right.
wagon.
like
I
the
just I
older ones.
and it's mostly for the engine. I love the supercharged V8. The 6.3 normally aspirated one that came after it. It's a great engine as well, but like I love the supercharged V8. They also used it in the E55, I think, as well.
Did they? I think we just like forced induction engines in general. Go choo choo.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like it depends. I like NA engines, but they got to have something that makes them likable, which usually means they either have a they're either like really torquey, like an LS,
Hmm.
or they rev really high, like the S2000 or the Coyote 5 liter.
Yeah, that's why people like them. Aaron, what do you
I
think?
I I don't have any cars in mind from Europe specifically to import, but I'm aware that they have the M5 Touring, and that came in manual transmission too.
Yeah. M3
Like,
Touring as well.
they had an
Oh
M3
yeah,
Touring?
Yeah,
oh, yeah. They had
and
all.
they
Did
actually
they
just
really?
announced the M3
No, no.
Touring for the
Okay,
current
sorry. I'm talking
generation as
about
well.
like older import cars.
Yeah, I know they had older
Like an
Yeah.
Tourings.
E46 M3?
I don't know if
No,
they had an E46 Touring. I think they had one.
that'd be my
It was
choice.
no, they didn't have an E90, but I swear they had an E46.
Hmm. There's a lot of
And
cool
I know they
Y2
had
wagons
the
out here though,
E36
older ones.
M3 sedan.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know they had the E36 M3 wagon too, I believe. Did it
Yeah.
come in a wagon?
I'm not
Maybe.
sure if they did an M3 wagon E36 generation. I know
Mm.
they had this. I know they had the four door though, which the four door E36 M3 with like the Euro spec S50 and S52, I think would be that would be that's a fun car, but the values already reflect that ship has sailed at this point.
I just love the wagons out of Europe in general. You know, I know this is a bit of an aside because I think we all like wagons, right? We all like fast wagons. They're just like, oh, it's like
Yep.
driving your own hearse. But like the thing that fucks me up is that their reintroduction of wagons into North America is going to be this new fucking M5 that's coming to North America as a wagon at like a price point of what $154,000. Like, so it's not going to go well, as it never does because nobody in North America wants a wagon unless they're us, and we don't have $150,000 M5 money. So we're never going to get an opportunity to purchase these things, and then we're screwed.
I mean, even the M3, it's not exactly cheap. It never was cheap, but these days especially, it's not exactly cheap. Um, but like there's other, I guess, hatches or wagons in Europe that I think like the RS4. It came as a in estate, it would be called in Europe, but like it came as that there, and we never got that version of it here. We only ever got the stand. Um, but like the B7, I think it's the B7 generation RS4, so like late 2000s, early 2010s,
Yeah.
when they had the 4.2 liter V8, the same one that they used in the Audi, the original Audi R8.
Is that the one they called it?
Um,
They called it like a 1. Or sorry, it was like labeled T, but it was actually a supercharger.
no, this is a normally aspirated V8. Um, Honestly, of like European cars at the time, like maybe it's just because I'm not in very many Euro car circles, but I think that 4.2 is kind of slept on as an engine because like you can get the RS4 as a wagon with a manual, and that 4.2 will rev out to like 82 or 8300 RPM. Like it revs just as high as the E92 M3 that everybody loves.
Yeah. You know, actually, it's funny that you mentioned V8s because it just reminded me of something that I really wanted to ask Aaron, and I'm sort of outing him a little bit. But you wanted to sell your S2000, and I think that segues well because that's a classic car, and we're talking about classic cars. What happened,
Yeah, yeah,
Mister? I
let's do
wanted
it.
it so desperately, and now it's on the chopping block.
I just
Do
feel like
tell.
I feel like I just don't drive enough. I want something more, a little bit more usable. And Just
I
a
mean,
new
that's fair.
experience. If I get the price I want, why not? I can always probably get one
That's
back.
fair enough. I feel like
But
you get disenchanted very easily.
You,
yeah, I feel
Aaron
like I do.
specifically, yes.
Yeah, that's Aaron. He gets disenchanted with his cars when he's not using them.
With
I also
everything,
don't
right?
think
Like,
that the S2000 being on all seasons is doing you any favors, but
yeah, yeah, we'll see. After I put on the wheels, suspension, tires, maybe I'll have a new appreciation for the car. I think having all seasons on it really kills the vibe of it. Like when we took it on that drive, I just felt like I was not driving in the car. I was literally on top of it.
Yeah.
And I think that's the tires. It's just so bad.
yeah, I mean I don't remember the exact model of tire, but they look like your standard 500 treadwear fuel economy all seasons.
Yeah, garbage.
I mean, mine are 560 treadwear, and I feel fine.
Hey, what's your tire size? Can you take my tires?
Can I
You're
take
about
mine are
18s, right?
19s?
19s?
Hell
Oh.
yeah.
Yeah,
Upgrade, baby.
Like
good
the thing is,
old
I have nobody
VW
that would take those
Pretorias.
tires.
N- Uh,
They don't fit anything else. 215,
You're gonna have to sell
45,
them to another
17.
S2000 owner as like
you'll have to pass the
storage
curse along.
spares.
Yeah.
That's
I've
so
always,
fucked.
I just want to see like what it would be like to be a Corvette owner or something with a big V8.
I mean, you could
I
rent
think
one.
the GT
I like I
350
said,
would be
I
nice.
always say like I could see you in a C7 Z06 or not a C7 C6 Z06. I feel like it's the most JDM of the Corvettes.
Yeah.
It's like it's low, it's wide, it like sort of like it fits around you nicely. Like yes, it's still very Corvette-ish to drive and in its interior fit and finish, but like I
And it's made of plastic.
I yeah, it's made of plastic, but like I don't really know what it. I think it's the LS7. Like I think it's like the fact that it has a 7 liter V8 that will still rev out to 7,000 RPM, which for like an overhead valve V8 and a 7 liter overhead valve V8, that's very impressive.
Would I be considered JDM guy?
What do you
I
Would
mean?
you
think
guys
so.
put me in that bucket? Would you guys call me a JDM guy?
Well, what have you owned? No, but you lean German, right? Because you have
I
this
don't know.
BMW desire.
Yeah, like you do lean German, but at the same time, like you always need like the JDM parts. Like
That's true. That's
you'll
true.
pay
I have a
extra
good balance.
to have that JDM brand or badge. Like when we were talking about seats earlier, and I said, "Why don't you look at Cobra Nagaros?" You were like, "Fuck no, it needs to say Recaro, bro." Like, what do you mean,
Yeah, bro.
Yeah, I think
Is that
you.
how you pronounce it? Recaro? Is that the
Recaro? Honestly, I flip flop. I'm pretty sure the proper pronunciation is Recaro. I do say Recaro sometimes though. I'm not really sure why.
Yeah, I honestly, I think you've owned so many Japanese cars, but you have. So there was the BMW, and what was your ownership? And then you went to the BRZ right after that, right?
BRZ
And then
Fit
obviously the Fit and
S2000?
S2000.
But in the
So
back of
you're.
my, I honestly wanted. I tried 2 times to buy an M2 before the S2000, and it never
Did
worked
you?
out. Yeah,
Well, yeah, the one where it was literally shitting all of its oil as they were doing the inspection. Is that one of them?
yeah, that was one of them. We can go into that after if
Yeah.
you
And then
want. And there's
wasn't the other one like the guy just backed out at the last second? He was
yeah,
like, "Oh no,
the
I'm gonna
guy
keep it
got cold
actually."
cock in the end, and he's like, "Oh, this is my first car, my first true love. I can't let it go. Sorry, man." And then I
What
was
the
just left
fuck?
hanging.
That's a shame.
And
You've
thankfully,
tried.
this was at like peak COVID prices too. This was like 53,000, 54,000. It was quite a bit of money.
They've come down since then.
No, not really, to be
No.
honest.
So
Yeah, I think they're
They've
still in
stayed
like the
there.
mid to high 40s for like a pre-competition. Because like I don't know, of the M2s, I think like the pre-competitions are the best ones, and then of those, if you can get like a 2018
That's the sweet spot. It's
LCI
LCI.
version, that's the sweet spot,
Yeah.
and those are like
yeah.
extremely rare,
Explain
I
to
especially
really
up here.
regret not buying that crashed one that had $20,000 worth of damage, but it was repaired by the dealerships. It had all the records, all the photos, and
what
it
would
was
they
just
want for
like
it.
they got rear-ended. It was 38,000. So it was exactly what the dealership was offering on trade. I don't know. I backed out of it. I didn't want it.
Had accident damage, you got cold feet.
Got cold feet. $20,000 worth of damage. Well, that's nothing for a German car, I guess. And he had all the
Well, I
records.
mean, especially when you consider modern cars, like a you know, in the early 2000s, mid 2000s, cars had like halogen headlights and this and that, and like parts were cheap and shit. But like, you know, modern cars with like LED headlights or like laser xenon HID or whatever, like,
Yeah, yeah.
you know,
Sensors out the ass.
A headlight on the Supra, for example, is like $2,400.
Jeez.
Like, you
Yeah,
could get
yeah.
into like a light fender bender and need like a headlight, a bumper cover, and I don't know, maybe a hood replacement, and you're already at probably like 11 grand in parts. Add in labor and paint, and
Most,
you're knocking on the door of 20. So,
yeah.
like a lot of, especially with modern cars, I feel like a lot of ones that have had accidents where you look at it and be like, holy shit, you know, 20 grand, 30 grand in damage may not necessarily be as bad as you think. Like, it could be almost entirely cosmetic.
If
Yeah,
I could get a
I
good
think
deal,
it
I wouldn't.
depends on the
Yeah.
usage too, right? Like if it's gonna be your daily, you know,
Yeah.
your
Of
beater,
course, it's
something you
just
can just fuck around with and not care. That's a good
Plus, you
candidate
get
for
a
that.
really good deal on it. Then, like, it doesn't matter. Like, let's be like realistically, because it's true. Like, you can rack up a bill, like with mostly like cosmetic and like non-frame related damage. Like, so it wouldn't be. It's not like I'm not saying go buy a crashed car because I think that's bad advice. But like, don't immediately dismiss it. Do your due diligence. Look into it. Like, see what the number is and see where it was hit. And it can't. It's not always the worst thing. But how much did they want, Aaron, for that crashed one you were talking about, crashed M2?
That's what it
to
comes down to.
38.
Really doing your due diligence. The guy posted up for 38. I actually went and saw the car, and then I asked him after. I'm like, "Can you go any lower?" And he said the dealer offered me 38. I can offer you the same price. I was like, you know, I can't really do it. Don't want to do it. And he's like, okay, fine. And he did end up trading in the car in, and the dealer listed it up for 45.
Yeah, you're out of
I
your
don't know what the
mind for not
dealer
taking
got,
that.
but that ad was gone after like 2 weeks. So somebody
Yeah.
bit the bullet. It had
Yeah,
60,000 kilometers on it. One owner, repairs done all by the dealership, and they did they put PPF on it after too, so that it matched the rest of the car. So everything was done like to spec.
Yeah.
Should
I
have done
think
it.
you really
I
screwed
I
up on that
haven't
one.
seen one that has depreciated down to 38,000 with any reasonable kilometers like
you're
in the
not gonna
past six
see that,
months.
especially for, again, if you're looking specifically for like a pre-competition LCI model. That ship sailed. I don't think we're gonna. I think those cars, like anything, like if you're looking for something lower miles, like sub 100,000 kilometers, I feel like they're probably gonna live in. They'll hit the low 40s at some point, and that's probably as low as they'll go.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
there's always a floor, right? There you got the E36, E46 M3s, which are like they top out at the four at like 40 grand. You got
Yeah,
E92, 50, and then you got well, you're not 50. You take 10 grand off of that. But yeah, there's always a floor, right? Like it
Yeah,
has to
there's a
just stay
range.
there.
yeah. I like. I really don't think we're gonna see another era of, like M car or AMG car, or even like early COVID 996 prices where it's like, you know 14 grand for like an E46 M3, because like at one point used, 14 grand could get you a decent E46 M3.
Yeah.
Or like the 996 Carrera 4S's at one point were in like the 30s.
I feel like a lot of cars have gone. I'll be honest with you. Like watching, maybe not so much you. I feel like with your BRZ, for example, Nick. Like I think you got what I would consider to be a good price. Plus, it was sort of sold to a friend, so you're like, let's just get it done.
Yeah,
Like
like
here's the
I
price. You know.
yeah, I think what did I got like 12 for it, which,
Yeah.
for the mileage that was on it and the year that I sold it in, I think that was
Yeah.
fair. I probably could have got more if I wanted to sell it privately, but I just didn't want to deal with private sellers
No, but I
or
what,
private
but
buyers.
that nightmare is something I wanted to avoid too. My FRS with more mileage, and I sold it at a really bad time too. I tried selling it. I wanted to get it sold in the fall, and then someone hit it, and then I had to fix it. So, it is what it is. But bad timing, and like, yeah, it just gets to a point where you're like, I don't want to deal with any more like 17-year-olds rocking up and having to talk to them. It's like the worst. But I will say, other than our cars, which I've watched other people's cars get sold, and the prices have definitely gone up since like in the last few years. Like it's crazy because like used cars are going for near new price. Like BRZs especially are going for astronomical fucking prices. Like I would never pay
Yeah.
this.
I mean, it all sort of started with the I guess the COVID market, but like that also sent the enthusiast market up because like everybody was then trying to get like projects and fun cars. Everybody had stim money and time on their hands apparently. So people were just buying shit up, and it's like once the price of something goes up, especially to that degree, nobody's gonna be like, all right, guys, let's start selling it for the old prices again.
No.
Everyone's gonna want to get their piece of that pie. So I really don't think we're gonna see, especially like used enthusiast cars, come down to those really cheap levels anymore. Like
Yeah. That's what I'm hoping for.
I'll use like the Focus ST as an example because that realistically, if you ignore the type of people that own that car, that would be like something that you'd normally consider. You can buy it cheap, used 8, 9, 10 years down the line, and it's sort of like my first enthusiast car. It's
It's
not
gonna
worth
be
it
the
anymore.
GR Corolla.
It's never, the
You
GR
think?
Corolla is gonna perpetually be a $40,000-$50,000 car. I think.
I could see them
I
hitting
don't
high
know.
30s.
I looked at them on Auto Trader. Some of them are like low 40s now.
They're definitely
I
getting
think when
into the
they
high
hit
30s.
the 35s, I may get one with a bit of warranty
If
left.
if they hit 35, I'm absolutely buying one over a Mark 8 Golf R.
I
I
told
would
John, I'm
absolutely.
like, when you want to sell it in a couple of years, probably next year, let me know.
Aaron
What
is king of friends and family
Yeah.
discount, I will say.
What I mean more is like, for example, like when I bought my MR2, I bought a running, driving, two owner, zero rust car for $3,500.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
those
never
are
gonna happen
gone.
again.
No, never. Even literally you can't buy non-rusty shells of fucking Civics for like less than
Yeah,
2 grand. You are
like you used to be
never
able to get
getting
like
that.
a Hawkeye WRX, not an STI, but a WRX, $5,000, $7,000.
Yeah, I remember.
Probably wasn't perfect, but it's that market of like cheap entry level enthusiast cars that you could like buy and like they're running and driving, but they probably need some work and you can learn on them, as you drive them. That's gone. That ship has sailed.
I think there are
You know,
exceptions. I think there are exceptions, but they come with certain stigmas and landfall, like mines, that you have to kind of navigate around. And I think that's a great topic for another time because like that's such a like what to buy first. I know, and I mean this with the utmost disrespect. Don't buy a G35, please, for the love of God. We don't need to hear the VQ trumpets. Everybody fucking hates you. I hate you. And if you see me, I'll let you know I fucking hate you.
yeah. They're not even really a good
Actually,
value
you
anymore
know
either.
what?
Same with actually looked at 350Zs last night on Auto Trader. Can't find one for like less than 14 grand.
Fuck.
And
Aaron,
most of them
what?
are auto convertibles.
Aaron, what is
You
it
know
that
what?
what is he was holding? He said, "Stop! I have to tell you about this G35 I bought."
No, not G35 story, but like, I feel like guys our age, we had like 3 starter cars to choose from:
Yeah,
BRZ, some kind of Civic Si, or G35, G37. Why did we go for the BRZ? I feel like that's the most like pure choice to be a car guy, in my opinion. If you were some like
I
hoonigan, like if you
yeah.
want to do some burnouts and shit, you'd probably get a G35 or a Genesis. If you were
I
some
I feel
young
like a
guy,
lot
you
of
know,
people when they're just sort of starting out, they're probably usually not really in the like financial position to buy what they actually want.
but all
So
three of those cars are the same price. So it's like
they go, well, I no, kind of. I mean, I guess if you consider
in the used market. Yeah.
used market, yeah. But it's like I find people normally gravitate towards like what they think will get them the most attention for the least money as they're just starting out, and that usually and what they can modify for the cheapest.
So
And
is that your
that's how
reasoning?
people that's how people end up in like G35s and stuff like that. Like, and even the BRZ too. Like, there's tons of Chinese crap out there for them, from
Well,
headers to exhausts, coilovers, wheels, tons of it.
Supra owner says that there's a lot of Chinese crap out there.
Yeah, everything that you can buy for the A90 Supra comes from Alibaba. Everything.
Yeah.
You can probably find it on Alibaba.
I
And
hate
everybody
these
that's
new
just
age
selling,
brands. Like their
Yeah.
names, it's always some like fucking acronym.
oh my god, the amount of like fucking exhaust, like Valve Master and shit, just ridiculous.
This
It
is
was
my
like, yeah,
Valve
a
master.
Valve Master exhaust is like $2,800, and it's like $1,300 from China on Alibaba. You just gotta wait a month and a half.
Dude. But sorry,
And
I think I did catch it, but Aaron's asked a question. So was that why you bought a BRZ?
so all right, this is gonna sound a little bit elitist, but I'll own it. I think I'm above the average enthusiast, and I wanted something that had really, that was A, would be cheap to run
Yeah.
and reliable, but B, has really good dynamics and felt really good to drive. And that's why I landed in the BRZ, because like it was like the car sort of formed around you, you sat low in it, you could feel it when it wanted to rotate, the steering had good feedback,
100%.
the shifter felt really nice, and it did that in a cheap package with what was essentially an economy car engine, so like parts were cheap and it was cheap to run and
Where's
reliable.
the
And
elitism come from this? That just sounds
I
like a lot. That's a sound logic. That's all you've.
I feel like most people just starting out, they just want like, what's the most amount of horsepower for the least amount of money, and can I make it loud and put fucking Kansai wheels on it?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's
You put a lot
probably.
of thought into this then, like to buy a car. Sorry, Anthony. Go
Sorry?
ahead.
No, you're good.
No,
Go for it.
I was saying you put a lot of thought into choosing the BRZ. I just chose it because it was a coupe. I knew it was a sports car, rear wheel drive. I knew nothing about driving dynamics or what a real sports car feels like until I got this car. And I think that's what really like added to my passion for loving these things. It was like my gateway car. I think
Yeah, and like it is, I think to this day, like not even just a gateway car, I think it's a great car in general. I think it's something that you can start out on and learn to drive, and like you can take that car to extremes. Like it's an awesome platform.
I
No,
wonder
they
how
did
many
a really
people
good
have been
job.
converted after they've driven or bought one of these and realized I love driving just because of the dynamics of this car.
Yeah, and it's like it's the same sort of thing with like why people love the Miata or the MX-5. Like it's not the fastest, it's not the most powerful, but like it's an enjoyable place to be. You can have fun in it without having to do, 150 miles an hour.
Yeah, 100%. This is like what after I got rid of my car, and then we were doing some work on our buddy's car, in a friend's driveway, and I remember sitting in his BRZ and just remember even just the seating position, like it just feels, it's I'm home again. Like this is a sports car. I remember, right? And I remember like I do say like when I bought my car, I went and I was like gung ho, but the moment that I got super gung ho was after the test drive, because I know the car's slow, but it feels fast for a slow car because you feel everything. A lot of people don't like that, right? They want I want to be isolated. I promise you, there's a lot more of you than you. If you are a person who doesn't care about cars, listen, hear me now. There are a lot of you who are like latent car enjoyers, who like don't realize what you do like. And there are some of you who wouldn't even be listening to this. So to the person who's not listening to this, I don't want to be on the road with you. I'd rather be on the road with those other people who give a shit, right? But you'd be surprised. And if you ever get an opportunity, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, if you ever get an opportunity to drive a real sports car, you'll be shocked. You should give it a go. You might just realize you have a passion you never thought you did.
Yeah, and like you'll hear everyone here say that like the BRZ and the FRS are rattly garbage cans, and they are. Like
Oh yeah.
Toyota definitely skimped out on them, and they squeak and rattle, and it changes with the weather, but like everything that you would want in an enjoyable car is there. It's a good platform. everything that you touch and interact with feels nice. Everything around it, you can tell they cheaped out on it, and that's fine because it hits the price point where it can be an entry level sports car for people, and there's not really um much in that market anymore today, new or used.
Yeah.
And they knew where to prioritize their spend on developing that thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it's to a similar extent. It's very much the same with, like when Subaru had the STI, which I'm still sad they got rid of it, but it is what it is. And when Mitsubishi was doing the Evo, like, they're not the nicest interiors, or like they rattle and squeak and shit, but like you can tell the money went into, the engine, drivetrain, brakes, suspension, and dynamics because they're good cars to drive.
Yeah.
Everyone rags on the EJ and the STI, and like, yeah, the EJ, it's not the best engine. I still think that we should have got the EJ 207 in North America instead of the 257 that we got, but that's for another time.
Yeah.
But like everybody that drives an STI or an Evo, like they enjoy it. And right up until the point the STI got discontinued, like one of the most common things that people would say about it is it's an enjoyable driving experience. It feels like driving like in a classic JDM car.
Yeah. Well, it's basically old engineering, right? Like that's what it
Yeah.
boils down to. It's the old way of doing things, and I know that we all agree on this, but like we don't generally like the new way, and I don't think that's because we're old people. I think it's because I used to be able to. I mean, that people have made these comparisons a lot online. You used to be able to, if you wanted to buy a steak and you cook up a steak, you use your pan. It takes you however long, 20 minutes to make a steak. Well, now you can buy a steak and stick it in your microwave, and it's really fast. You get it in a minute. But just because it's faster doesn't mean it's the flavors. You can't savor the getting there and the enjoyment and the payoff. Like it's a completely different thing. It's not all just about I got from here to here very quickly. Like that's stupid. And
Yeah. I mean, the new
uh,
WRX is probably one of the best examples of that. Like, it's on paper, it's better in every way than the previous gen WRX, and almost on par with the STI, but like it just a boring fucking place to be. And it,
You know what?
sorry, like the thing for me is it redlines at $6,000. Like, if you have anything that's supposed to be sports car, sedan, whatever, you got to get at least like 65 or 6700 RPM out of that shit. Like $6,000, that's like they're fucking diesels that rev to $6,000. You can get out of here with that shit.
sorry, Aaron, what's
You
up?
know what? Let's segue this into our last topic,
Yeah.
which is what can you buy used for the same amount of money as something that is new? That's like much more fun.
Ooh. What? Well, we have to pick a price point, right?
Yeah, I
Because
mean,
what
like
do you say? Like new Camry money?
we could talk about this for hours, but let's
Yeah, let's
let's
go
put
through
it in the like the 35 to
what is
$45,000
the most
range.
normie car right now that you'd say? How about the
Rav4
RAV4? Has
has
a
to be
Yeah,
right.
three,
Rev
something like
Rev
that.
What is
4
that
Corolla
new?
hatchback.
38,000 for a Rav4. So yeah, let's
I mean,
let's call it.
I think we should compare it to, because like if it's somebody shopping for an enthusiast, like nobody shopping for a Rav4 is gonna be like, fuck, I want a 12-year-old S class.
You
But
don't
like
think so?
somebody shopping for like a GR86 might be like, huh,
All right, let's
E46
set the limit
M3.
at
All
40
right.
grand. Yeah, let's
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I
what
think the
would you guys
35 to
choose?
45 range is fair. So
So
in
this the criteria of this would be like what, like a daily driver, something that you have to take to work every day.
That's the thing. What do you qualify as a daily driver? Because I dailied my car for 7 years through the snow. I brought a fucking Christmas tree home in it 5 years in a row. Like, you can daily anything, and I don't. Oh, it's a two-door sports car. How can I daily
Yeah.
it?
So
So
let's keep it simple. Something that you can drive every day. You don't need to bring a Christmas tree home. You don't need to bring a TV home.
right.
But just something that you could feasibly drive year round,
Yeah.
and it'll work.
So I would never. I want to. Let me submit an omission for us. Not an omission, but like I would never buy a convertible I want to drive all year round. That's my one that I won't drive all year round. I'm sorry.
I would consider a Targa if
Yeah.
it has a metal roof, like
Yeah.
the Miata ref. I would consider that.
I
But
agree.
full cloth convertible, no.
I agree. So I think anything that isn't a metal roof is out. I'm feeling like, what are we taking into account, like what it might cost if it breaks down? Like, because if I were gonna buy a brand new
Your total
Camry,
budget, your
huh?
total cost of ownership
Okay,
is the price of a brand new Camry.
okay, okay, all right. I
Yeah.
I will say, and I have a soft spot for these, even though I know I shouldn't. But I think the best looking Mustang was the 2013. It only lasted like 2 years, I think, right? The 2013 and 2014 models. If you could find a V8 2013 2014 Mustang in bright green, you could find them. I know you can
I
find them in that
I
price range. Yeah.
I want to add to that. Make sure it is a 20, I believe it's a 2013 and later, because if you get the 2012, that's where you get the updated body style with the old 4.6 V8,
Yep.
which is
A piece of shit.
fucking garbage. But if you get the 2013 and newer, you get the 5-liter Coyote, which is good.
Yeah. I'm not even an American. I genuinely dislike American cars, but I have such a soft spot for that Mustang. And I've only ever seen, I saw one green one on the highway and I'm like, "Oh, someday." But
I do like me a Boss 302 from that
yes.
generation.
Oh, but you'll never get it in that
Why
price
do you
range.
why do you like this thing?
Why? I
And
just
Why? What is your
so
rationale?
like it's just so fucking American and in your
yeah.
face.
It's just like, like I said, I just think that, okay, first of all, for me, and I know it's not for everybody. So like, this is me, right? I really like crazy colors. Yeah, I'm a graphic designer. I like colors. And my fucking room is like papaya orange, my actual bedroom. So like, for me, having that green, big box checked. Big old fucking V8, the new Coyote motor, good motor, right? You can get a nice, if you want a daily, obviously. In this case, definitely buy a manual. I know I'm like a daily a DSG, but like, buy the manual. You'll love it. And I don't know, man.
I
Like,
mean,
it's
the
still like
auto of
it.
those years were dog
But,
shit
but you
too.
like
Yeah,
the look of this car, like
I
the
love it.
Yeah,
I
it
think
this
just like it
generation of
looks
the Mustang.
aggressive and loud and like it's
it's it's
it's
such
like
a
cheap.
fuck you
It's
car.
cheap. It's not really so cheap anymore, but like at the time it was like cheap speed. Like you could get a
Yeah,
GT at the time for I think like high 20s and you're getting like a 6-speed manual with a 400 something horsepower V8 and like yeah, it doesn't handle amazingly until you go into like the Boss trims which are more expensive, but like most people buying that type of car, they just want to put their foot down and go fast, and it works for
yeah.
them.
I
I
think
don't know.
that's
When I
great.
see this car, I don't think of it as like a fuck you car. It looks like a I'm fucked car. I'm down bad.
Look,
The
maybe
I
V6 ones
do
maybe
are
the
like that.
V6s.
I do acknowledge that if you own a green Mustang, you may or may not be a nightclub owner. You may or may not stink of an entire bottle of like Paco Rabanne Million. But I will say wholeheartedly that I fucking want one so bad. I love the taillights. That's what it is for me. They changed the taillights between the 2011, 2012 to leap to the 2013 generation. They had this like outline taillight and I just remember seeing, it's just one of those things. Either you like it or you don't. I respect it. I understand. But for
It's
me,
like a
I
Viper
think it's
moment for
great.
Anthony.
It is a Viper mode. You know why? But the one I saw was a convertible. It was like
Ooh.
it was right as I was getting my license too, I think, as well, that I saw the first one that I saw on the road. So like, or maybe like right as I'm getting to drive on my own. So like I saw it and I'm like, there are 3 cars that I saw on the road that are in that list. The previous generation STI, so like the 2013 era one, that's definitely on my
Mhm.
list of hope to own someday. Although it will explode immediately upon me taking ownership because it's an STI. And then I would like one of those Mustangs, and it has to be green. It has to be green. But
But
that's
not a
for me.
convertible.
Not a convertible. I would rather be dead
Okay.
than own a convertible. But
Okay, that's good.
Aaron,
That's what I was trying to get at. Like maybe you had some kind of childhood memory with this thing, and it
it's not
kind of
childhood.
seems like it was,
It's not
right? One of
childhood.
your
It just looked good in the sun. I think it's a good looking car. It's lots of power.
Childhood memories would be like the Terminator Cobra, which I do like a Terminator Cobra.
They do. I don't know if
They
they do
they
it for me.
do something for me. especially with like the supercharger wine. I fucking love me a good Terminator Cobra, but that they're not affordable anymore either.
No,
Um, I mean, I'm sure we're all gonna bring our own biases into this because we
of
all
course.
have our own tolerances and things that we prefer, and
Okay, Nick, I
you know,
want to know
like
what your
I
choice
don't.
is. For the
Hmm.
price of
Sorry,
a
yeah.
brand new Camry, what is your choice?
Price of a brand new Camry. Um, I mean, whoa, if we're going top of the line Camry, which not very cheap anymore. Um, I'd probably try and find something that I could drive every day. I'd honestly probably try and find like a higher mileage, potentially engine replaced 996 generation Carrera 4S.
Really?
Can you
Yes.
find those for
That price?
40s?
It's gonna be hard, but you can still find them in the mid to high 40s and low 50s. You're gonna be
Okay.
getting something that has miles on it. Like I'm talking 150 to 180k plus. But I'm okay with that.
That's
I
it
will
though. That's your
happily work on
budget.
them.
40K on the car and then no more money
And then
for
pray for
maintenance.
maintenance.
That's it. That's where you're
Other
capped
than
at.
that, I'd probably look at oh, this is tough. There's so many cars going through my head right now. I'd probably skip out on the E46 generation M3s. Um, I'd skip out on the S2000 just because it's a convertible and it just wouldn't be nice to drive in the winter with the soft top.
Daily. This has to
Daily
be.
has
This
to be
has
a
to
daily.
work
Yes,
as well
well,
as a
I would
Camry.
daily an S2000 if it was a hard top.
I
My
saw one for
criteria
19.
my criteria for a daily is like, can two people fit in the car and can I put 1 week's worth of groceries in the trunk? If the answer to that is yes, it can be a daily.
Okay.
That's my criteria for a daily because how many times am I going to need to move a Christmas tree or a TV? Probably not that many, and for the times I do, I can probably afford shipping. So that's
Give us
my
the
criteria
knowledge.
for a daily.
What is the car though? Like you're like, and this is what I think a daily is, I'm like,
What
yeah,
is
I
your
know, but
choice?
like I respect the thing. If you want to reach for like a what was it 996, like I could see it. I just don't like that's a tough car
It
to
has to be
daily.
realistic, right? Like something that you can feasibly
I'd probably
afford
reach for
and
that. Otherwise, I'd look to see if I could find um, either a Hawkeye or a Blobeye STI
Like a good one.
or um, a higher mileage Evo 10.
Yeah?
ooh, Evo 10, yeah,
Yeah,
why not? Those are cheap. Like I've seen a couple
not
that I go
super cheap,
for
but you can get them.
decent.
You can
I
get
saw
them
a
for the
really
right
clapped one
price.
for 22 and I really considered it for a little bit. It was the worst one I've like front bumper needed to be entirely replaced. Like the brakes were like painted. I'm like, "Oh, this thing's been through hell." But it was
Yeah,
22
for
grand.
me, it would probably be one of those three because I personally wouldn't do anything like a 335i.
Yeah. That's fair.
The N like the N54 and N55, as much as I love them, they are like they're expensive to upkeep, especially long term.
Mm.
N54 especially, N55 did get a fair bit better. Um, I like to drive a manual, so I'd skip anything Mercedes or Jag or basically yeah, something that I could do the daily work, works in the winter, can fit some stuff. My stretch is a 996 C4S. Otherwise, I'd probably look towards a Blob or a Hawk STI or a slightly higher mile Evo 10.
That's fair. Aaron, okay. You are
Me, it's
Mr. Deal, so
pretty simple. I would do what my friend did. He bought his E92 M3 manual transmission for 30 grand. He put 5 grand into rod bearings and with the engine mounts, did all the maintenance and everything. And that only cost him 5 grand. Maybe he's got to get tires another two. You know, said and done, maybe he's at around 40. And then he's got a pretty reliable car. He doesn't daily that though, but I think the example that he got is a perfect example of a daily car. It's already high kilometers. It's been in a few accidents, and as soon as he gets it up and running mechanically, it's good.
Yeah.
That's what
You
I would do.
do for a daily have to consider winter driving though, because we are in Canada and the E92. I don't know what size tires it has, especially on the back, but wide tires and snow driving generally don't go very well together, even if you have
Yeah, we don't
winters.
get that much snow. It's okay.
I mean, if you're listening to this from Sudbury, sorry, but down in the GTA, yeah, it's not a common thing for us to get tons and tons of snow. But if that's your only car, I could see it being a problem. If you have to get to work, but that's not really like I feel like that's not the car's fault at that point, right? Because like we plow, we pay our taxes, so they plow the roads, and like if you live in this area,
People
you could do
drive
it.
these cars in the winter. I've seen
Oh
like
yeah,
911s and stuff. Fine.
I
In
respect
Toronto.
them
In
Fair
Toronto.
enough.
immensely. That's
Another
true.
option would probably be a Cayman. And I know we talked about that
Interesting.
before too.
I could see a Cayman being
For
you're probably not
daily.
getting a Cayman S, but you're getting, unless you go like pre 981 generation into like one of the weirder looking, where they
Yeah,
look
you
the
can get
same from the front and the
987
back.
S for
Yeah,
like
like
under 30.
a dot one or maybe even a dot two,
You know
but
what?
definitely a dot one I could see.
I will say, now that you mentioned another option, because I just sent one in the chat, but I was looking at the Mustangs I mentioned. They're actually, that one is a little higher mileage. It is winter right now, the time of recording, so you're not gonna have tons of sports cars on the market. But that one's going at 22 basically. So I think on the higher end, I will say, just to add one option on for me, I really like my car, and I did pay 35 for it. If I were to do it again and try to be more on a budget, I might buy a Mark 7 instead of a 7.5. I know the transmission is 6 to 7 speed. I understand there's a difference there, but drop the fucking, be in the high 20s for the car, immediately tune it, like you'll have a good time. It'll be like you can fit people in it, you can do whatever you need to do. There's been the only thing I haven't been able to haul in mine with the same body basically is a fucking mattress, which in fairness, not gonna fucking happen. So I think they're great options. Like to go for a Golf R. If you can stretch to a 7.5, go for it. But I think
I
they're
think the
great.
Golf R
I think
is,
that's the wrong option
if you
based
need
off
like,
of what you
What?
said earlier.
if you need a car to do everything, it's hard to go wrong with an R.
What do you mean it's the wrong
I
option?
think for you, the right option is Scirocco R, imported from
That's
Europe.
not. Yeah, but they're not gonna daily
That's in
Nope.
your
that.
40 grand budget. That's what you should have got.
You need, if you're importing a car, you need to want the car and be an enthusiast. I don't think a normal person buying a sports car is going to go for an import option, because
I
I don't think they're
no.
going to know how
This
to
was
deal with it when they need to get it serviced.
Camry replacement, right? So like,
Yeah, it's a Camry replacement, but it's fine to have two doors. But yeah, no nobody's gonna do that. Now that being said, I think you have. If I'd known how much I liked this experience of owning the Golf R and the power and the engine and whatever, that might be a thing. But I couldn't have gotten here without owning the Golf R, and that's a story of an ownership story in itself. That being said, if you want to import a Scirocco, they're pretty fucking cheap right now, fellow Canadians. So it's a good move. Wait, no, don't tell them that, because then they'll import them, and then in a year or something, I won't be able to do it for cheap. Don't import Scirocco's, actually. They're shit. You won't like them. Don't do it. Keep them cheap.
Import Renault Clios instead.
Yeah, you should do that. I think you don't think a Golf R as a daily is a good option? It does everything.
No,
Or
I
do you
think it's
just?
great, but I just thought it would be more creative if you had the Scirocco.
I think
More
that,
unique.
dude. I think buying that when just it's a tiny aside, but when imports were cheap, that would be amazing. Like around 2012, when you could easily get right-hand drive car insurance and imports were stupid cheap. Like, how could you not? Right?
But
Like,
can't you get a
Yeah.
Scirocco R for under 40? You can't, right?
yeah, you can.
Oh, you can get a
Oh,
Scirocco R
yeah.
for mid-20s.
You can get them for teens.
Yeah.
If you accept right-hand drive, we literally looked at one the other night, 15,000 Canadian, and then 1,000 probably or 1,500 to ship it, and you're good. It's a good option. If you want to buy one that's already here, there was that one guy that's trying to sell it for 25. I think that's optimistic. But,
That's not an R. It's just a base.
It's not even an R. Oh,
Why
then
would you
he's.
go through all that work and import a base? Like, what is wrong with you?
I don't know. I think he's dreaming. Did we? The
Probably
one we
just
looked at
trying
was.
to. Yeah.
Did we
He's
definitely
probably
look
just
at
trying
an
to
R?
like trick people. It
Oh,
was
he's
definitely not an R. It was a base, or like a TSI. It wasn't an R.
But
Or
the
even
one
a
we looked
Scirocco
at, the white
GTI.
one, was that for sure an
Oh,
R?
the one we looked at was for sure an R.
Oh, okay. Well, then he's a scam artist. Well, that's a shame. Well, don't buy one locally. Import your own. Go fly to Europe. It literally is. You should just go. Go to the UK. The flights are super cheap. Buy your fucking car, drive it to the port, arrange it, and get it gone. You'll have a great time, and then you get to go eat Scotch eggs or whatever. It's nice.
Yeah.
I think it's good advice. That's good buying advice.
Yeah. I think we can probably wrap it up there.
I think that's a good choice. Yeah. I mean, I think that's
We've been
sound.
through a lot today.
Obviously, some of you will agree with us. Some of you will disagree with us, and some of you might say, "Why would I want to own anything but a Camry?" You know, leave your comment, single viewer, below. We really appreciate you listening to us ramble for an hour and however long this has been going, and you know, your continued singular support means the world to us. So, for this piece of shit, Curbrash, I've been Tony. This has been Aaron. Goodbye, Aaron.
Goodbye.
And this has been Nick. Goodbye, Nick.
Wait, actually,
See you guys.
What?
I just got an email from the JDM plug that my Olins are in.
Oh, this just in.
Potentially a
S2000
topic for the
build.
next podcast.
Yeah.
How are we going
Oh.
to build Aaron's S2000?
Yep. Oh man, the
Okay.
Curbrash S2000. That's yours.
Yeah.
Good job.
We'll get you
All
a
right,
sticker.
sweet. Thanks,
All right.
Japanese plug. All right, goodbye, everybody.
All right.
Bye.
See ya.